Hey there everyone, and welcome back to another cryptocurrency market update. My name is Brendan from Crypto 101, and the US elections are seriously right around the corner. I mean, depending on when you're watching this, you might already know what the election results are. Now, this is going to have a massive impact on the entire crypto market, and during our usual crypto market updates, we like to talk about what's happening on both the technical and the fundamental front. But I want to take this one a step further and talk about why this election is going to be so big for the crypto markets, what you can expect moving forward, how this can impact prices. But I also want to take a look at the past and see how previous election cycles have impacted the price of Bitcoin and altcoins alike. So if that sounds interesting, all we ask is a couple of things. Number one, if you like the content, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And number two, make sure you stick around to the end. I have a special surprise for everybody from my good old friend and co-host of the Crypto 101 podcast, Mr. Bryce Paul, so you're not going to want to miss it. But before we get into that, let's talk about the crazy week that the crypto market has in store, including all of this information about the election and the crypto ETFs. Now, I want to kick us off by talking about how Bitcoin was able to just tap its previous all-time high. In fact, you might have missed this because it happened really fast, but it's a big deal. So if you missed it, just about a week ago, Bitcoin was able to work its way back up to just underneath $74,000. And this marks the first time that it has tapped its previous all-time high since March of this year. Now, the majority of this year, we've seen Bitcoin chopping around, moving a little bit lower, but kind of sticking between roughly $50,000 and $70,000. Now, as we have started to move higher and recontest these all-time highs, it marks a huge shift and pivot from this consolidation phase that Bitcoin has been in for so long. And I think that the election can act as a catalyst to really just shoot us out of this consolidation range to the upside and have Bitcoin smash through all-time highs, as we'll continue to talk about here. Now, you've probably seen a lot of articles floating around like this one saying, hey, Bitcoin's price outlook hinges on the 2024 US election. And there's all these analysts talking about it. In fact, I was just going through an article that was saying, is Bitcoin going to hit 75,000? Is it going to hit 80, 90, 100,000? In fact, we've seen much bolder price predictions come from some of the largest financial players on the planet. I mean, take Van Eck, for example. They are a traditional financial player. They're a household name. They need no introduction, but they're also a Bitcoin ETF provider. And they were just on TV over a week ago talking about their $3 million Bitcoin price prediction. So when we're looking at this election season and the impact that it could have on Bitcoin, there are a lot of different predictions out there, but the one thing that they all have in common is that they are up and to the right. There's no one out there saying, hey, this election cycle is going to be the death of Bitcoin. It's going to be the crash. In fact, they're all saying quite the opposite. They're saying, hey, is Bitcoin going to make it to $100,000 or is it going to be a multi-million-dollar price point by the end of this thing? So I want to show everyone just a cool piece of information that I came across showing what Bitcoin has done during previous election cycles. So let's go all the way back here. This is a really useful chart. Shout out to Quentin for making this public. But this is a really useful chart that shows us that in the 2012 election, Bitcoin was priced at $11, and the rest of what happened afterwards is history. Then in the next cycle, during 2016, we saw that Bitcoin started off at around $719, and then it shot up all the way to nearly $20,000. And in the previous election cycle, on November 3rd of 2020, Bitcoin was sitting right around $14,902. And what happened afterwards? Well, we hit a new all-time high of $69,000 on Bitcoin. So why should it be any different this time around? In fact, we have quite a few data points to kind of show this, but we are once again at what very well could be an undervalued price point of Bitcoin. I mean, even The Block, who we're going to continue to reference here with a couple of articles because they're awesome at what they do, but The Block came out and they said, hey, Bitcoin could see these immediate 3.5% election night price movements, these big volatile swings. And I agree, because when we look at what has happened historically, Bitcoin is generally just heating up at the time of the election, and then after the election cycle, it really shifts things into high gear, which creates an opportunity. Now, another thing that people have to be paying attention to here is the Bitcoin ETF inflows, because I truly do believe that this is just another catalyst that could send Bitcoin right through its previous all-time high to much, much higher prices. So what you have in front of you here is the Bitcoin ETF inflows and outflows for the month of October. And you're going to notice that there is a clear trend here, which is that the inflows absolutely dominated the past month for Bitcoin. In fact, if we take a look at the average or even some of the larger days of outflows here, it was maybe 100 million, maybe $120 million worth of outflows. And then we look at the average day of inflows being 400 million, 500 million, $370 million. And then we look at some of the larger days from last week where Bitcoin was doing 500 million, 800 million, $900 million of net inflows during a 24-hour period. Now, what this means is that Bitcoin has seen some of the highest levels of trading volumes that it has experienced since launch. And also, this is some of the highest levels of Bitcoin ETF inflows that we've seen since the launch as well. In fact, this day right over here marks the third highest day of Bitcoin ETF inflows that we have ever seen in the history of these ETFs. So when we're looking at potential catalysts here and impacts that could have an effect on the price of Bitcoin, yeah, I think the election is a big one. And there's a lot going on there, but it's not the only positive catalyst that's working in the background to send Bitcoin to much, much higher prices. And this is just another one that I think everyone has to understand. And one of the big reasons that I bring this up is, it's important to note just how much money is pouring into Bitcoin, but also what we're seeing is that Bitcoin's mining difficulty breaks through 100 trillion for the first time ever. And I bring this up because as everything else is happening in the background, Bitcoin is getting harder to get your hands on, it's getting harder to mine, and massive amounts of Bitcoin are getting taken out of circulation and into long-term storage solutions like the ETFs and wallets and other things. So as this continues to happen, as Bitcoin becomes harder to get your hands on and billions upon billions, in fact, at this point, it's been tens and tens of billions of dollars have been put into these Bitcoin ETFs upon the existing supply that might already be removed for long-term storage or to exchanges and other things, Bitcoin is becoming rapidly more scarce and harder to get your hands on. There is a set amount of Bitcoin that can ever be in existence, and we have started to see the most basic laws of supply and demand come to fruition, and what that is doing is pushing the price of Bitcoin higher, and I would not be surprised if we see new all-time highs for Bitcoin in the not-too-distant future. So to wrap everything up here, the election, whether we're looking at the past impact that the previous election cycles have had, whether we look at the future of what could happen to crypto, whether we look at the Bitcoin ETF catalyst or the most basic laws of supply and demand, they are all agreeing with the fact that Bitcoin can very easily move higher in prices. And what that does is create a massive opportunity for the entire crypto market. Now, as we begin to wrap up here, we want everyone to understand that there's going to be a lot of opportunity to make gains in this upcoming bull run. And so my good buddy Bryce Paul is going to be doing a webinar on that topic specifically. And we want to give everyone who watched this video all the way through free access to that, just as a thank you for doing so. So if you're interested in joining his webinar on how to make life-changing gains in the post-election bull run, then if you're on YouTube, we have a link in the description down below. And if you receive this video through email or another resource, then we're going to have a big old button for you right below this video that you can click on and get signed up there as well. So thank you all for watching. We hope that you enjoyed this market update, and we hope to see you in the future.